kingdom of Busan, Prince Jimin was known for his charming ways and his penchant for finding adventure in the most unexpected places. As he explored the castle one day, he stumbled upon a secret chamber that housed the servants' quarters. Intrigued by the quiet hum of activity within, he decided to venture deeper into the unknown. Among the bustling maids and footmen, he noticed one who stood out from the rest, a young innocent-looking girl named Vian. Her beauty was unassuming yet captivating, and there was an aura of kindness that radiated from her every move. Prince Jimin watched as Vian went about her duties, tidying up the rooms and making sure that the castle was in pristine condition. He was struck by her dedication and her unwavering work ethic. As he observed her from afar, he found himself growing increasingly infatuated with her. He knew that she was beneath him in status, but he couldn't shake off the feeling that she was the one for him. Determined to get to know her better, Prince Jimin decided to approach her under the guise of wanting to help with her chores. "Excuse me, miss. I couldn't help but notice how hard you've been working. Is there anything I can do to lighten your load?" he asked, offering her a charming smile. Vian looked up, her beautiful eyes wide with surprise. "Oh, well, I appreciate the offer, Your Highness, but I'm not help from the royal family," she stammered, her cheeks blushing a pretty shade of pink. Prince Jimin insisted, waving his hand dismissively. "I'd much rather help someone as hardworking and kind as you. Don't you agree, Vian?" He took a step closer, his heart racing as he waited for her response. Vian hesitated for a moment before meeting his gaze. There was something about Prince Jimin's sincere expression that made her feel safe and cared for. "Well, I suppose, but you don't have to," she trailed off, her voice barely above a whisper. "Oh, but I insist," Prince Jimin said with a warm chuckle. "Let me help you with those dirty dishes, and maybe we can find some other ways for me to assist you in the future. You never know, I might just be your knight in shining armor, Vian." He offered her a mischievous grin, hoping to put her at ease. Vian couldn't help but laugh softly at his words. "Well, you certainly are, Your Highness," she teased, feeling a blush creep up her neck. "But I suppose it's all right, this once." Tentatively, she handed him a soapy rag and began showing him how to scrub the dishes. As they worked side by side, an easy silence fell between them, broken only by the occasional giggle or shared observation. As the pile of clean dishes grew, Prince Jimin found himself growing more and more enamored with Vian. He couldn't help but wonder what else she was like. Her servant's uniform, He wanted nothing more than to get to know her better, to see if there was a chance that their connection might deepen into something more. And so he decided to ask her out on a date. Why? He began, his voice barely above a whisper. I was wondering if you would ever consider going on a walk with me, just the two of us. I could show you some of the more hidden parts of the castle grounds that most people don't get to see. He held his breath, waiting for her reply. Vian looked up at him, her eyes wide with surprise. She had never been asked out on a date before, let alone by a prince. But something about the way he looked at her, the genuine care in his eyes, made her heart flutter. I would like that very much, Your Highness, she stammered, a blush spreading across her cheeks. Prince Jimin beamed, his heart filled with joy. He couldn't believe his luck. Excellent, he exclaimed, clapping his hands together. I'll make sure we have a lovely time, Vian. You'll see, there are some truly breathtaking views of the castle from up there. They finished cleaning the dishes together, and Prince Jimin made sure to thank Vian profusely for her help. As they made their way back to the servant quarters, he couldn't help but steal glances at her, marveling at how beautiful she looked even when she was dressed in her plain servant's uniform. He promised himself that he would do everything in his power to make their date special, to show her just how much she meant to him. As the day of their date approached, Prince Jimin couldn't contain his excitement. He spent hours planning every detail, making sure that their time together would be perfect. On the day of their date, he dressed in his finest clothes and made his way to the secret meeting spot he had arranged with Vian. To his delight, she was already waiting for him, looking just as beautiful as he had imagined. They spent the afternoon exploring the hidden parts of the castle grounds, laughing and talking as they walked. Prince Jimin pointed out landmarks and shared stories about the castle's history, while Vian marveled at the stunning views and the luxurious surroundings. As the sun began to set, they found themselves sitting on a secluded hillside, gazing out at the magnificent castle in the distance. "This is truly breathtaking," Vian whispered, her eyes shining with wonder. "I'm glad you like it," Prince Jimin replied, reaching out to take her hand. "I wanted to show you just how much I care about you, Vian. You mean more to me than you could possibly imagine." Vian's heart skipped a beat at his words. She had never felt this way about anyone before, and the fact that it was the prince himself made her feel like the luckiest girl in the world. As they sat there lost in each other's eyes, they both knew that their lives would never be the same again. Vian looked up at Prince Jimin, her heart racing. She couldn't believe that he felt the same way about her. Finally, Prince Jimin leaned in closer, his lips mere inches from her. Vian, he whispered, his voice full of longing. She closed her eyes, anticipating the moment there would meet, and then he kissed her. It was a gentle, full of tenderness and passion. Vian felt a spark of joy that she never knew existed. They stayed like that for what felt like an eternity, lost in the magic of the moment. They sat there basking in the afterglow of their first kiss. Prince Jimin couldn't wipe the grin off his face, and Vian felt like she was floating on air. They talked for hours, getting to know each other better and sharing their hopes and dreams. As the moon began to rise, they realized it was getting late and they made their way back to the castle. They parted ways with a promise to see each other again soon, their hearts full of love and anticipation. As Vian walked back to her quarters, she couldn't help but smile to herself, already counting down the days until their next adventure. Prince Jimin couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt. He knew that their relationship was forbidden and that it would only cause trouble to Vian. He vowed to keep her safe no matter what the cost. Unbeknownst to him, a jealous maid named Dayun had been watching them from afar. She had always been envious of Vian's beauty and kindness, and now she was furious that the prince had taken notice. As they disappeared around the corner, Diane stormed over to Vian, her face contorted with rage. "How dare you?" she spat, grabbing Vian by the arm. "Think you're too good for the rest of us now, do you? You'll pay for this, you little..." Before Vian could defend herself, Diane pulled her into a darkened corner of the hallway, raising her hand to. Just then, Prince Jimin appeared, his expression a mixture of anger and determination. "Let her go," he growled, stepping between them. "She did nothing to you." Diane laughed derisively, but Prince Jimin's eyes were cold and hard. "I am warning you, Diane. Back off now, or you'll regret it." For a moment it seemed as though the tense standoff would escalate into, but then Diane unwillingly stepped away, her shoulders slumping in defeat. She glared at Vian one last time before stalking off down the hallway. Prince Jimin turned to Vian, taking her trembling hand in his. "Are you alright?" he asked, his voice gentle. "I didn't realize Diane was so jealous." Vian nodded, her eyes filling with tears. It's nothing, she managed to say between sobs. I'm just glad you were there to help me. Prince Jimin squeezed her hand. Always, he said with a reassuring smile. No matter what happens, I'll always be there for you, Vian. And with that, he led her back to her quarters, their hands still clasped tightly together. Prince Jimin spent the next few days preparing to ask his parents for their blessing to marry Vian. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but he was determined to make them understand how much she meant to him. Finally, he gathered up his courage and approached them in their private chamber. Father, mother, he began, I have something very important to ask you. They looked up at him expectantly, their expressions unreadable. I want to marry Vian, he said, his voice trembling slightly. The king and queen exchanged a glance, their faces betraying their surprise. Vian? The queen asked, raising an eyebrow. The maidservant? Prince Jimin nodded firmly. Yes, mother. She's the one for me. I know it may seem unusual, but she's the most wonderful woman I've ever met. He took a deep breath, feeling his heart pound in his chest. Please, father, mother, give me your blessing. The king and queen looked at each other again, then back at their son. We'll need some time to think about this, Jimin, the king said, his voice stern. This is not something we can decide on the spot. Prince Jimin nodded, feeling a wave of relief wash over him. At least they hadn't said no outright. He bowed his head respectfully and left their chambers, a nervous energy coursing through his veins. As he walked down the hallway, he couldn't help but feel hopeful. Maybe, just maybe, they would come around and see that he had found his true love. Prince Jimin couldn't contain his excitement as he hurried back to Vian's quarters. He knew it would be difficult to keep the news from her, but he also knew that he couldn't wait to share his joy with her. As he approached her door, he took a deep breath and knocked softly. Vian, it's me, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Can I come in? There was a moment of silence, then the latch clicked and the door swung open. Vian's eyes widened in surprise when she saw him standing there, a blush rising to her cheeks. Prince Jimin, she exclaimed. What can I do for you? Prince Jimin took her hands in his face filled with determination, and came in. Vian, he said, looking into her eyes, I need you to listen to me very carefully. I went to speak to my parents about us, and I asked for their blessing to marry you. Vian's mouth fell open in shock. You did? She breathed. But they're your parents. They might not agree. Prince Jimin shook his head. I don't care if they agree or not. I love you, Vian, and nothing will change that. I know it might take some time, but I believe they'll come around eventually, he said firmly. Vian's eyes filled with tears as she realized how much he loved her. She had never felt so cherished in her life. Thank you, Prince Jimin, she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. I love you too. They stood there for a moment, lost in each other's gaze, before Prince Jimin leaned forward and kissed her softly on the lips. It was a gentle kiss filled with promise and hope for their future together. As he pulled away, he held her face in his hands, his eyes beaming with love. "We'll get through this, Ryan," he said reassuringly. "And when we're together, nothing else will matter." Prince Jimin waited anxiously as he sat across from his parents in their private chambers. His heart pounded in his chest as he tried to contain his excitement. He had never been more sure of anything in his life than he was about his love for Ryan. Finally, his father spoke. "We have been thinking about your request, Jimin. While it may seem unusual, we can see that you are serious about this. We accept your choice to marry Ryan." Prince Jimin couldn't believe his ears. Tears of joy welled up in his eyes as he turned to his mother. "Thank you, mother," he said, bowing his head in gratitude. "I promise to take care of Ryan." His mother smiled warmly at him. "We have faith in you, Jimin. You have always been a good son, and we believe you will make an excellent husband." Prince Jimin felt a sense of relief wash over him. He knew that there would still be challenges ahead, but now he had the support of his parents. He couldn't wait to share the news with Ryan and start planning their future together. The day of Prince Jimin and Ryan's wedding dawned bright and clear. The castle grounds were bustling with activity as florists, caterers, and musicians hurried to prepare for the grand event. Ryan, dressed in a stunning gown of white satin, could hardly contain her excitement as she nervously waited for her groom. Prince Jimin, looking dashing in his royal attire, was pacing anxiously in his chambers. He couldn't believe that today was finally here, the day he would marry the woman he loved more than anything else in the world. As the clock struck the hour, Prince Jimin and Ryan locked eyes across the crowded room. They exchanged a smile that spoke volumes about their love for each other. The room fell silent as they walked hand in hand towards the altar. The priest's solemn words echoed through the grand hall as Prince Jimin and Ryan exchanged their vows. Their voices were shaky with emotion, but their eyes never left each other's. Finally, the priest pronounced them husband and wife, and the room erupted in cheers and applause. Prince Jimin swept Ryan off her feet and spun her around, laughing together like two young lovers. As they shared their first dance as husband and wife, they couldn't help but gaze into each other's eyes, remembering the long, winding road that had brought them to this moment. They knew that their love had been tested, but they also knew that it had only made them stronger. As the night wore on, Prince Jimin and Wyan retired to their chambers. Exhausted but happy, they collapsed onto the bed, holding each other tightly. I love you, my dear husband, Wyan whispered, her eyes shining with joy. Thank you for making me the happiest woman in the world. Prince Jimin smiled, his heart full of love for his new wife. I love you too, my dear Wyan, he replied, kissing her forehead. And I promise to love you forever. As they lay in each other's arms, their hearts beating in sync, Prince Jimin leaning closer to his new wife, he, with his finger feeling the softness of Wyan, he whispered, his voice with emotion. You are more beautiful than any painting I've ever seen. Wyan blushed at his words, her eyes shimmering with tears of happiness. She reached up to touch his face, her fingers tracing his jawline. Jimin, she breathed, her voice trembling. I never thought I would be lucky enough to have someone like you love me. He smiled, his heart swelling with love for her. You are my everything, Wyan. That was slow and tender at first, but soon their passion igniting like a flame. They lost in each other's embrace. They knew that their journey together had only just begun, but they also knew that they were ready to face whatever lay ahead, hand in hand. Love knows no bounds, not even the confines of reality and station. When a prince found his heart captivated by a humble castle maid, their love shattered barriers, proving that in the palace of love, every soul is a noble, every heart a throne, and every union a royal decree.
기억은 간직할게 가끔 꺼내어볼게 아프고 아파도 날 바라볼 수 없잖아 오늘도 이렇게